Good to see you. How are you?
Hello. Yes. Hey, guys.
How's your summer been?
It's gone fast. How about yours? It's been
Uh,
busy.
I'm getting ready to go to Santa Fe tomorrow.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we're driving with our dog. So we're renting a house. We've rented the same house for a week, I think 3 or 4 years.
What part of Santa Fe do you guys go to?
It's off Canyon Road.
Uh-huh.
It's up above the main square.
It's wonderful. We've gone several times. We've got good friends who have a house down near the square and near Canyon Road too, so we can walk to both, and I love that.
Yeah. And we walk every day, except it's going to be warm.
Yes. Well, it's still cooler than here though.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be cool in the morning.
Yeah, the mornings and the evenings are wonderful.
Yeah.
The Indian market's happening right now too, so that will be great.
How are you?
You want to sit here? I'm happy to shop, please.
Yeah. We're playing musical chairs.
Okay.
I'll look here. So, this, you sit here, your purse here. I'm gonna see if I can get up. See.
How are you?
So Linda's supposed to be here and, well, you don't know whether she's going to be here, but Clyde is supposed to be here in person or on video. Okay.
He was actually in person, but.
Was that the allocations committee? Okay.
I can't see who's there right now. It's so small.
Oh.
It's Glenn and Emmanuel and
Uh-huh.
Martine and David Small just walked
Okay.
out. So we've got a quorum. Hey Clyde, how are you? Good to see you.
Mr. Arundel. Mr. Arundel, how did this day go? Fine. It looked amazing.
2 weeks ago, it's still
Still high?
no words, still processing.
Good.
What are you doing?
He's completed a major milestone of national health project. So that was made it today.
I feel like-
Piece that was circulated a few months back. So we had 18 citizens having to
You should know that.
simultaneously activate.
I want to make sure.
You're
gonna say that.
Guard events. And we had
We're back.
social media attached to
You
it.
won't be saying that it's gonna be
So-
alternative.
Yeah, big deal. We have some national press coming. You know, it's good.
Sylvia,
With the local.
Yes,
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, David?
Doing great.
Happy summer. It's been a great week. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure excited.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
Fantastic.
It's been a
Join our
fantastic week. Yes, for many reasons. So yes.
All right.
celebrating a lot. So yes.
So David went to the car to get his glasses.
Okay.
So we'll convene right after he gets back.
Okay, that sounds great. So has your dog gone to Santa Fe before, Jim?
Yes,
That's okay, good.
we stayed in a house that was an open yard, and the neighbor put a note on our door
Mm.
or the morning because the dog was bothering her. Barkeep, yeah, she's very, very bark. Yeah, she's very loud. So
Oh,
we went to the opera and we came back and she was howling. So we decided not to go to the opera, which is no big deal because I'm not a big fan of operas anyway.
well, doing the opera there, that is actually on my list. We've gone, every time we've gone, I don't know, we've had a conflict, so we couldn't go. So it's on my list to do just because of the venue.
Yeah, I've seen it, one opera before, and it's beautiful.
There's David.
Yes.
I call this meeting of the Annual Reports Committee to order at 4:32. The first item on the agenda is approval of the annual committee meeting or minutes from January 10th. And I think you were, Sylvia and David were on the present. So do I have an emotion to approve the committee meetings or minutes as submitted?
So moved.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yep. Thank you. Oh, so we're supposed to look at the 25 or 24, 25 meeting list. Oh, it's on the board, on the monitor.
Right.
So is that,
I have a question, Chair.
yeah,
So Patriot Day is, I'm sorry?
Microphone.
Oh. My question, looking at the schedule, so Patriot Day is the 11th, and then it has in brackets September 4 or September 18. So are we proposing that we need to move the meeting to September 4 or 18? Is that the gist of that sentence or
I don't
date?
have any particularly conflicts with Patriot Day, do you? Any member?
Well, is it is it implied that since September 11th is Patriot Day, we need to move the meeting?
No, we wanted to be sensitive to the fact that it was Patriot Day and, and,
Oh, okay.
and offer and allow you to, we were giving you basically different options if this body wanted to change the sort of regularly scheduled second Wednesday meeting. If not, we can stick with September 11 for our meeting. These are just for y'all to, as a point of discussion.
Is Patriot Day a federal holiday?
It is not.
Is it?
It is a national day of service though, so I do, a lot of companies do recognize it as a national day of service. I am going to be personally in Colorado that day, so flying back that night. on
So
the 11th.
how does September 18th or September 4th work
Yeah.
for everybody?
Say the
Yeah.
4th is coming off of,
Memorial-
sorry. I think
oh,
that's
Labor
King's
Day.
Water. Am I?
You're not,
The chair
Yeah.
recognizes.
yes,
Thank you.
I
Chair.
recognize you.
The 4th is very close to returning from the Labor Day break, so I would advocate for the 18th if we were to look at those dates.
Then my next question, Chair, if I may,
Yes,
would be to our director or Glenn. What is the date of our commission meeting that month? I'm sorry?
For September, it would be September 19th.
Okay, okay, that's great. So we'd have time to meet before the commission meeting. So that's, I'm fine with the 18th if ever.
oh,
The 18th?
it's my birthday.
Is your birthday?
Yes.
Oh, man. So what?
No, and I,
That's a national holiday.
Gotta bring you.
Yeah.
We got an annual report. I don't. This is one day.
so September 18th is fine with me. Is it fine with everybody else?
No.
So
Yes.
let's move to the 18th. And Emmanuel, I think you're going to send out invitations for the schedule.
Correct. I will.
Okay. So Glenn, do you want to talk about the?
I believe we have this
Language?
listed as a voting item, and of course, all of these meetings would be subject to change, right? But just so we can,
Oh,
as a
yeah.
body, vote on the
Yeah.
schedule, so we can.
So do I have a motion for the amended meeting schedule?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve this amended meeting schedule.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We're good? Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go through a few things today. Basically, what I figured what we could do is kind of talk through the body and the appendix of last year's report. We can look at some, we'll look at the requirements, we'll look at the report itself, get some ideas from other board and commission examples. We'll look at also our goals for this current year and then for next year, right? Like we did before. I think we created a process that worked this last year for their annual report, but we can certainly get started earlier. So first, let's go ahead and go through the annual report requirements. None of these have changed since last year, but just as a refresher, we'll have to get a memo from our commission chair and from our director. We'll have a table of contents, mission and guiding principles, summary of the highlighted, summary of the highlights of the year, major objectives and accomplishments. That was a big topic of conversation last year too. List of objectives and programs for the coming year, board recommendations, other information, and what's that say? Copies distributed to the city council and our city management. So I wanted to, oh, and then it gives us basically formatting. What I want to remind y'all is that that makes this report a very flexible document and how you want to represent these requirements, right? And so, like I said, we have a few examples that Emmanuel has lifted from our other boards and commissions. So we might create some new ideas. We certainly do not need to go with the exact same format or outline as we did have in previous years. We can start something fresh and new, or find a mix of both, right? As long as we meet these larger requirements, we are solid and good to go. Next, please. All right, discuss the outline of the annual report, including the body of the report and the appendix. Next. Civil service. Oh, I know that Emmanuel sent out last year's annual report. Have we had a chance to maybe like just sort of skim through that so we can have a recollection of what that looked like?
Yeah. I've
Right? Okay,
read it
cool.
in detail, so.
So should we just kind of together look through that just so we refresh and figure out like what we liked, what we didn't like? Or do you want to look at some examples first and then look at what we've done to say, hey, why don't we do something like that similar to here? Here's what we might be able to take out, this and that, whatever.
I have a
The
question.
latter. Yeah.
Chair. Yes.
I have a question for the director, and that is for this annual report with the staff and everybody else in the city. I know we worked hard on it, tried to make it look a little fresh. Did it have an impact? Did it go unnoticed? I mean, what was it? Did anybody even say anything about the commission's report?
None of the work of our commissioners goes unnoticed. We are always deeply grateful for the time and effort you put forward, especially as it relates to the annual report, because this is a snapshot that goes on record. That is a requirement for the commission to produce and put forward. I did not receive comments or questions about the annual report that was submitted last fiscal year. And to me, that is worth celebrating because one, that means that we shared the information in a method that was clear and concise, and that we didn't bring forward anything worth questioning. That here's, a very plain and simple snapshot of the work that was accomplished. No one should be surprised at what's within the, included in this particular document. It was submitted on time, which is also something to celebrate and amplify. And I'd say that for all boards and commissions, these types of reports, they're not submitted with the intent that they would garner a lot of attention, if you will. They are necessary to demonstrate the work that you all do in advisement of our office, to highlight what the office has accomplished because of your advice and guidance. And two, I think we can continue to figure out ways, if it's important that this report garners some extra level of attention, maybe a separate format that is either briefed at COLAC, the Quality of Life Arts and Culture Commission, or something to that effect, I think would get that separate and just attention. But the report alone, it's very straightforward in regard to, we have to submit it. And if we don't, is when we get the attention that we don't want. But I want to say again on record, thank y'all.
Consider it a major victory that we didn't have any minority reports.
Agreed.
Sylvia, do you have any other comments? Or Clyde?
No.
But Sylvia, you gonna go?
I really didn't have any comments other than I would love to see the other ones. I felt like we were in a locked-in format that we didn't have a lot of flexibility with last year. But I'm always eager to see what others are doing and how we can make ours better this year.
Thank you, Sylvia. I mean, I agree with that, Chair, in that I'm also a visual learner. So, I think in my own work, where I can illustrate, I think about illustrations and graphs. Also, I'm wondering from an impact perspective, this is really great data because of all the lists of vendors and participants. So it's comprehensive in that way. I wonder just from a storytelling perspective, if it would also maybe behoove us to have pull out testimonials from grantees, comments on the impact that the dollars had towards their work. So we can also have that live in the report and pull that out during presentation, because I believe, Director, that would be your charge, so you would have access to that kind of information that you can share to the council.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, just following up on what Commissioner Valentin said, I think testimonials certainly in support of reaching goals. We could testimony. I think that's a fantastic idea, and it could help to support our efforts. Yes, to say that, we could, not that we're cherry picking testimonials, but certainly we could identify testimonials that reflect our impact.
If I may make a suggestion towards that, I think what might help bridge that gap between the services that we provide as a department and y'all as a commission, as a whole body, is working with your liaison assignments, those artists and organizations that you engage with even outside of your liaison assignments, to get those sort of, because if y'all have a very different relationship with them than we do as staff, and as this being y'all's report, I think that would be really great to get that kind of feedback for those testimonials. But I've made that note, thank you. Okay, shall we?
And Lynn
Oh.
was just talking about it. The report should be more graphic rich.
I think there's definitely opportunity for that. And so why don't we look at some of these examples then, because I think we'll see exactly what we're talking about right now. Do you want to start with the Civil Service Board? All right. So of course we'll see again some of those sort of administrative requirements. So here's the memo. I think our memo had a little bit more body to it, which I'm fine with. But still, so let's just kind of scroll through. Cool cover. We had one of those last year, so I'm not worried about that.
Yes.
Table of contents requirement. So here we get into some sort of fun graphic situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
So you can tell like their narratives much smaller and very much sort of in that style of kind of a corporate annual report, if you will, right? Telling that high level story. We don't need to necessarily go through the text. I think really the formatting and so the visuals of this really helps give us that idea. All right, moving on.
I just wanted to say that that first slide is probably one of the most overused stock photos I've seen.
Oh, I'm sure.
I've seen that stock photo.
Yeah, with the special characters and everything.
Yeah.
We do business. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So then we first have our photos. Like, believe that's probably of the Civil Service Board. Great. So that's another option. And here, this is always, I think, great when we're talking about how do we tell a story through graphics and less text and more visuals, having those sort of icons to go through. And we certainly have access to be able to do that through, I think we have Adobe Stock, right, to pull those kind of things. Just more visual kind of representations to help break up the information. I think they have less information than we do generally between all of our committees and the commission as a whole. But then we have summarized information like this, right? and sort of step-by-step plays when we're looking at timelines. They break down their information in a much more visually friendly way than just, you know, black on white text. I think that's room for us to do something with. Summary tables. So this was a big, for the commissioners that weren't on this committee last year, there's a really big push to try to get sort of services by district and summarized or pivot table based kind of things. We have finally, a year later, figured out how to do that in GIS, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be really helpful for a lot of different things. So I absolutely think should continue that conversation on what kind of summarized data helps tell our story. Which might help us not have to list out every single thing again, right? To keep it light. All right. Activity, again, in a much more sort of readable way, and it's just less dense. Yeah. So that's what that one looks like.
Mhm.
Anything in particular that we thought was grand and great?
As the graphics were great. And the table, I'm a numbers person, so yeah, I seized on the table, but I know Clyde and others are more graphic oriented.
Awesome. Okay.
Glenn,
Yes.
do we have in-house capabilities to do that design, to do those types of designs? I mean, I guess we do, correct?
Yeah, we have yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. We have subscriptions to Adobe stock, and so we're able to pull templates and things like that out. Even if it's not necessarily this kind of template where it's sort of pre-made for us, maybe just even the organization of this information, I think we can certainly do that even in a simpler way.
Yes. Well, it's definitely, it's user friendly for sure.
Yes, and we have different avenues to do that through different subscriptions that we already have, which is helpful.
So we have manpower to do that?
Yeah. Sitting right there. Yes. Which is a nice, yes. Yeah. So Emmanuel and I will be working closely on this as we sort of outline this. I'm really hoping, and I really believe that this year will be an easier process. One, because I think we're starting a little bit earlier. I think we have a better handle on things and our processes after sort of going through it last year, that it won't feel quite like the lift that it was last year. So I'm confident in that.
I have a question, because that looks more like what I'm used to seeing for an annual report. And our annual report really dives into the minutia. And I'm just wondering, does that, what organization is that again? It's the what?
Civil service.
Civil service.
Board.
So do they have that much less budget and responsibility than we do? So that it doesn't require as much data in the report as ours?
I'm actually not sure as to the full scope of their operation,
Oh.
so I can't answer that well.
Because
I want to say yes,
obviously it
we have
meets-
more.
Well, the reason I say that, obviously, they check all the boxes on the requirements. So,
Oh, yeah. And I think that's I think regardless of scope, checking the boxes of these requirements can be simple, essentially. And so I think that we'll probably find ourselves on the in-between, especially knowing the will of the larger commission to want to be able to tell particular stories. But, you know, y'all are the first step for all of that. Let's go to the next one. Park and Rec Board. This is not their big, beautiful, huge report. You know what I'm saying? This is just their need to submit it to the city secretary's office annual report, just as so y'all know that there's those two differences.
so do we have options?
I would recommend we continue to focus on this, submit to the city secretary annual report.
But this is parallel to the report we submit, correct? Is that what you're saying, Glenn?
Yes, this is their board report as required by the city. The other one is really, you know, their big look at what Parks and Rec does, oh no, again. So we have our table of contents, this beautiful photo. Members, great. Mission statement. So this is a little bit, if I remember, they go a little bit heavier on text than like the previous one. Right, committees, subcommittees, we have that exact page in ours. Summary of accomplishments. So I guess they break that down into maybe themes. It's harder to see. Yeah, could you make that a little bit bigger? But here we see probably something closer to what we've done, which is very basic and text heavy, right? Yeah. So just going through the same kind of information here, different kind of report out. So their decisions, and so they've put some numbers in there, which I think is good. But that's it, right? So nothing super visually grabby, probably because they do their other report where that's where they go in that direction, right? Where they're doing their graphs and they're doing their visuals like that. So this is much closer to ours, but again, they don't include a really large appendix like we do, because the body of ours is really about 12 pages.
Yeah.
This is comparable, I believe. So that's another example. And our last one, the Environmental Commission. Contents, members, history and mission. I thought they did some graphics on here too. Maybe I'm maybe I'm wrong. Recommendations. Oh, yes. So instead of necessarily an appendix like we have, thank you, they link to other documents. So an example for us might be that we would either link or add into an appendix our, final allocation for an Arts Activate round or COP. It would link to a list of Lynn Rushton, our public art manager, her sort of projects that she's done with things like that. I don't mind having an appendix. If we're going to use that, we might as well attach it to the whole document as opposed to having to attach links and making sure that all of those work. But again, here we're looking at a report that's relatively short, listing out in that kind of way. Very similar to what we have now. But yeah. So.
How are we coming along with gathering the information for the report? Because I think you guys gather it, right? So we're kind of like cumulatively as we go along,
Yes, so I'm already gathering that because we have our state of the arts in September. So a lot of our stuff, since all of our funding at least has been completed for the year, we're able to gather that. We'll talk about, because now we'll switch to our report and sort of run through what y'all would like to keep, what we might turn into something that's visual and that kind of thing. I think what took longer as we got through November and December was in last year's report, we said like this person was allocated $10,000 for a project and we paid out $10,000 because they completed, or $5,000 because they did not complete the project, whatever that was. And so it turned into this accounting game at a certain point, which I'm not entirely sure we need to continue in that direction. Really, that's the different, we get into through the allocations committee, but through commission by extension is, approving these allocations. Great, that's an action of the body. What happens after that, the execution of the contract, the payout, all of that is really the administrative side of things. And so we could, if you'd like, to kind of delineate between those two things, show what the allocations committee or the full commission has done through the allocation and maybe attach those in there. Going through that full accounting process, we paid out, or we did a requisition with this other artist because they ran out of cap funding, but we want to choose them for one more time, or things like that. That's the minutia that we're getting into.
And that's outside of the needs of an annual report. So
yes,
I agree.
Yes.
I don't think we need it.
I think we also run into, and this happened a lot, Commissioner Bedell and Weinstein last year spent an ungodly amount of time, as did I, editing this document, and I am not a professional editor by any means, and that was a big topic of conversation last year, and we sort of got lost in the sauce and all of that. And I think if we can find ways of removing that minutia while still telling the story we want to tell, of course, but if we can if we can find ways to do that through graphics, through summaries and things like that, I think it helps prevent error. And then if we want some kind of summary on how much money we gave out, making sure that that all exists in one spot and that it's not really spread into multiple spots throughout the report to, again, avoid error. Because that's a lot of the stuff that we ran into last year, if I can recall, is, oh, hey, you said $5,000 here, but down here it says 5,500. Oh, okay. Go figure out why. So that being said, should we just kind of scroll through the report and
Yeah.
hire and fire and decide what we might want to see? This is
Mhm.
all very preliminary.
I
Yes.
promise Sylvia it would be an easier lift this year.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So as we scroll through,
Hmm.
here are our memos. So we'll do the same thing. That's really nothing that y'all need to worry about.
Hmm.
We need to have that page, I think. The table of contents, that'll just get updated as we keep going through stuff. These kind of pages, I think there's really not a whole lot to do with when it comes to abouts, right? We're talking about our mission and vision. That hasn't changed. Our guiding principles, those really haven't changed.
But those were voted on at the commission. Are those the things that we voted
No,
on?
those are the goals. Those
okay.
goals that we did were the ones that were voted on.
Okay,
And so,
yes, you're absolutely right. That's right.
Glenn, what we
This
ran
slide
into
does that.
Glenn, what we ran into last year, there were just so many, it was loaded with typos,
yes,
inconsistencies, even in our mission and vision and those things, those pages alone had just dozens of typos, and inconsistencies. So we fixed those.
yeah. So a lot of this stuff, what I think what we'll do is as we prep for our next meeting is kind of go through, now that we've all been able to review a little bit more, do we want to change? So we'll go through a little bit more closely and decide. All right, here's the commission, right? To sort of describe what y'all do as a body. We'll list out the members. You know, we saw that in those other examples. We'll list out our committees. So as far as content goes, it's really not much to do with that, I don't think. Here's where we start getting into like dollars that we're putting up here that then later we also have dollars somewhere. And so it turns into this weird accounting game. So here we list out our sort of core programs, which I think makes total sense. But what I might recommend as we look forward is, instead of having these sort of general fund budget dollar amounts, maybe we list out our programs for content, and then later in the report, we sort of do that sort of budget summary. Like how much, like, so we have, if that is something that you would like, that we find a way to put that into like a one-page situation. So we don't have this sort of, these random numbers sprinkled throughout. Right? Any
Right.
questions so far? Sorry, I know I'm going
Could you
fast.
repeat what you just said one more time?
Yes, so if you see here, right, at the beginning of the programs,
Yes.
yes, so, right, general fund budget, $6.8 million, right, 31%. Cool. So I'm reading that going like, awesome, I guess that's how much money was spent. We then describe what that means, what these cultural service contracts means. And then we come down here to COP, Arts Activate, CAP, Community Arts, and we total those dollar amounts, right, on how much was spent. This then turns into okay, let me add together those 4 different numbers. Does that add to the same? See where we're getting to this, like,
Yes.
oh my God, like, as opposed to later in the document, if we wanted to have sort of that budget summary page, we can break these down into a much more digestible way. Oh. Excuse me, my stomach just growled. So just a thought as we move through. But here we have our sort of core functions, right? Our cultural services contracts and what those are. We get into our cultural venues,
Mhm.
both city managed and partner managed. and then public art. Right, so we're just listing out those core things. Commissions and donations, that's all part of public art, installations, dedications, right? So here's where we get into just a lot of listing. So are there any thoughts on, is there a different way you'd like to see this? Right, like is there, you know, this is great information. This is part of the body of the document. It's things that occurred throughout the year. You know, how do we?
There's
feel
one,
about that?
I'm sorry.
No,
When we break out the different organizations, like it says cultural venues,
Mhm.
15 million, then we list the organizations, but we don't put how much to each. We intentionally did that. Wasn't there a reason that we didn't break that out?
Yes, there was. And it's because and this is one of the other reasons why this whole accounting thing, it's just usually a lot more nuanced than just this many dollars to this, right? Because if it's a staff member that's a part of that team, they're not just at
Okay.
one facility or another, right? Are we talking about just maintenance and repair? Are we talking about subsidizing? Are we talking about insurance as well, right? It's just a much more nuanced conversation.
Okay, but the organizations know how much they got, and it didn't raise any questions. Nobody asked anything, so
Right.
we're good.
Yeah, because later when we talk about actual like funding program amounts, those are listed later as well.
Oh, okay.
And so,
The appendix.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we don't need these answers. We don't need to come up with these answers now, but these are the sort of things when we talk about, we don't have to do the same thing again. If we want to find another way to present this information on public art, how might we like to, right?
Mhm.
Moving down, municipal radio, peer review panel program. See, here would be a great way, right here where it says accomplishments for the 22-23 peer review panel. That would be I would consider a great opportunity to put in some visuals, right? Read
Yeah.
more than 2,700 pages of applications, listen to more than 93, right? That's where we could put something there that's really nice and sort of reader friendly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, okay, great.
I agree, with you, Glenn.
I'm making notes, hold on. And I think some of this stuff we can make shorter in general. I think we can find ways of doing that.
Hey,
We'll
Glenn,
come with
just,
more recommendations and more feedback. Sorry.
but a question on, did each department within OAC pull together their respective information? So did public art produce the public art section for you and so on? And you pulled it together from an editing perspective? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, for sure. I agree with you on the brevity of text, you know, and the opportunity to highlight to your point about some key metrics and key moments, which I think you name here as the additional accomplishments or something like that, or other accomplishments, right?
Yeah.
So it's like key metrics, key moments. I think we can get creative as well with respect to the table of contents. The key here, obviously, is to tell the story, if I'm not mistaken, of the work for AOC to the council and leadership in general, right? So, you know, the best way to do that is often, you know, through poetry and some stories. So less words, less prose, more poetry, too.
Great.
A lot of words in this document.
There's a lot. It is a
And a lot of different numbers. So I agree about the top line, sort of, you know, per section breakdown. I don't think we need to see an itemization down to the individuals and their, you know, honorariums that they receive. That's probably too much in the weeds for something at this high level.
I mean, if that's the direction you want to go, I am all for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we move down to we had the key metrics page. Let's pause on this one for a second, because what I'd like to do is essentially go through our appendix and allow that to inform what we then put into our key metrics, right? See what? Oh. So,
Sylvia,
uh,
can you see?
Yes, I can see it.
okay, great,
Yes.
great. Okay. We have our other accomplishments and events. So I think we'll need to come to you with some recommendations on what we want to include in that. Okay, so we'll also skip over our goals and objectives because that's next in our briefing in general. But we'll have our in the body it will be like the next year's goals and objectives. And then in the appendix, we had the current year, right? All right, so in the appendix, we have our goals and objectives for this current year. So that's what you see in the body. That's what will be in this next one. And then maybe how we addressed those. So that might be a conversation we have maybe with commission in the September meeting. We start talking with them about how do we feel like we met these goals? Like what are your inputs and things like that? Well, we'll talk about what that correspondence might look like.
Looking at these, it is kind of template because we did the same things again.
Mm.
I mean, would you, randomly found ways to provide connections to potential donors, major financial supporters outside of the city, NEA, Moody Fund, ongoing. I'm pretty sure there were some new ones last year.
Yeah. Well, some of those, which ones are you looking at again? Sorry.
Commission goals for 2023.
So those were ones that we were, quote unquote, had completed.
Yes. Right. Yes.
So what we'll do then is we'll look at our goals for FY24 and say, how do we meet these?
Yes.
So, right, like Commissioner Holomo did his update on AI, which I believe is one of these goals in here.
Yes.
So we would put on this date, Commissioner Holomo briefed the full body on X, Y, and Z. And so this might be a correspondence that we email out or discuss in a meeting, depending on the pleasure of the chair, to see, hey, what did y'all think about these particular objectives that we set for ourselves? All right, so if we move a little bit further down here, again, we get to general fund and additional resources, more dollars that we really have no frame of reference for, which again, I would suggest maybe doing that sort of, budget's not the right word. I said it earlier though. Funding summary. And here we break down, actually we do break it down by facility.
Yeah.
For the general fund budget for cultural venues. Right. Exactly. So here we go with the redundancies in the document.
Earlier, we listed it by name, but we didn't include the dollar amounts. This one, we actually have the dollar amounts.
Right. So we see some redundancies in the report too.
Yeah.
I know. There's some really great directions we can move this year to help simplify this. So what I'm hearing is we don't necessarily need to show the breakdown per build, or y'all are okay with maybe not showing the breakdown per building.
In the appendix?
In the appendix. Or if we do some sort of financial breakdown, we put that in that budgetary summary, not next to these descriptions of facilities, mayhaps.
Hey, Glenn, just interject here. I since we're looking at the appendix, what I would be okay with more than the itemization, sort of per grantee or recipient, is just that summary that kind of leads from each program, right? So I'm looking at the cultural organizing program right now, the COP.
Mm-hmm.
Just that top line, I think, is all we really need for a report like this.
What page are you on? Sorry.
This is page 23.
Okay, great.
But each program, there's a sort of summary,
Mm-hmm.
paragraph or two leading into the itemization, right? And for example, page 30 is Arts Activate 2023. The summary is 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. Well, and my thought was what we could do is, we can have that page in the body of the report with more of those summarizing graphics, right? How much money went to these will be thoughts for later. Organizations and artists, how much, how many people were funded in what district, or like where were events taking place in which districts? Those are things that don't currently really exist in this report that I think are important. And from feedback that I've heard from both this committee and the full commission is to show where things are happening in their districts, right? Sort of as a function of your service on commission. So that's okay. So great. Short summary of a program, but then also that's when we get underneath that, the sort of summary graphic table-based information. Okay, great.
Right. And the summary table that you referenced earlier, I think people want to see what's happening in their district, but I do think they want to see how much money is going into the district too. So I think they're going to want to see both financials, summaries as well as activity.
So that one's going to be trickier, I will say already.
I know.
As well, and we'll see what that looks like, only because it will be sometimes it'll be truer than others. If we're showing what funding to COP organizations, right, that just goes into their overall operating budget.
That's true.
How do we break that down? Even for an Arts Activate project, if they have multiple locations,
It's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and
True.
they trade, jump around.
yeah.
The artists. Yeah.
So the way we've sort of historically visualized the money part of things is to show how much is going to artists and organizations. Out of those, how much are going to Alana and non-Alana artists and organizations, to sort of show a different story based off of our other goals and initiatives when it comes to the cultural plan and things like that.
Question. In order to kind of give some information as to where these artists are performing in different districts, if we just said, so-and-so organization got this much money and served these districts, would that be, and that way we don't have to break down how much money goes to.
Yeah.
But it could, it could just say,
Yes.
they went to all those districts.
So what we could do, and a thought that I had was in this appendix, we can give that brief description of the project. And what I thought was very appropriate to show the work that, let's say, allocations, or for COP, for instance, the full commission, because it comes to y'all, is to, in the appendix, essentially attach a summarized version of the allocation that was approved, right? So it lists everyone. And then what we can do is add that column to say which districts they serve as a part of that,
So,
that
for instance,
project.
Yeah, like the symphony.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a huge dollar amount. And then everyone looks at that and goes, oh, well, that's just a downtown arts district thing. But I mean, they perform at Paul Quinn College. They go a lot of places. So you could say, just include all of those things in there.
Right. And then what we can do as well is we can show a different table that says how many events essentially have happened in each district. So you can sort of see different versions of that story. Okay, great. So what I think what I'll do next time is bring some examples of different ways that we can visualize these data, because plural noun. Because I'm already working on this for our state of the arts. So hopefully we'll have some visuals with you, including a map, right? And see what that might look like. Okay, cool, great. This is really helpful. I know we're just kind of like running through this, but I feel like this is helping us, lay some good groundwork. All right, so now we get into individual descriptions of funded projects with the dollar amount that they were allocated. So that might be resolved in the fact that we have that just full list of allocation. Right now I'm just on page 24.
Yes.
So in COP, we listed the organizations and how much money we got with like a mission statement. For project-based funding, we list a summary, like a 50-word summary of the project. I understand I have always understood the want for this, right? To show basically what project did we fund? What did we put money towards? The allocation dollar amount also makes sense to me. The amount paid, I think, is where we get into this administrative. I feel like that's when we sort of cross into the OAC staff side of things. That might just be superfluous information that we don't need.
Yeah, and I agree. If we funded Big Thought, all we need to know is that we funded them 682,
Mhm.
and we don't need to know the amount.
Yeah. I would agree, especially because that was the decision commission made, right? Like, so that has the direct link to it. So that makes a lot of sense to me. We can probably just present it differently. But as we get into these programs and we get into, project summaries, how do we feel about that in general? Do we want to continue something like that?
Is it a burden on the staff to do that?
It can be tedious, but what I did last year that was immensely helpful is I'm talking about AI. I exported all of our project summaries from our application portal. I copy and pasted them into ChatGPT and asked for because the other ask was to put everything into past tense. So I said, give me a 50-word summary, check for grammar, and put everything in past tense. And that is literally, I then took all of those and put them in an Excel file, and then I mail merged them. So tedious, but with the assistance of ChatGPT to actually write the summaries themselves, much, much more doable.
So it would be easier than it happened last year?
Last year was easy once I did that.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I agree.
So again, I understand why this has been part of our annual report for years, because it is nice to see like, okay, yeah, you funded this group. Well, what did they do? So if that is something you would like to continue to see, great.
I would.
Okay. Absolutely, that completely fair.
And so just from a staff perspective, I mean, if it's not too much trouble, then, I could see it, but like the language, I imagine you're the one that actually writes the descriptors of the groups and what they did. That seems like a lot too.
So COP will be easy because we'll probably copy paste a lot of it, honestly, because it's the same organizations with the same missions. If we have a new organization, then yeah, we'll have to, add or adjust or whatever that is. But COP that'll be the least amount of work out of all of them.
You see on page 34, where it says Ricardo, Alacron, and then it's got,
Oh, yeah, we need to fix those. Those are you talking about the formatting right there?
yeah, I didn't know if that,
That is an export because it goes to a
Oh.
CSV file.
so that's all that is.
Yeah.
It actually, the report was actually.
Yeah,
right.
I missed that last year.
Oh, no.
Oops. Thanks for finding it.
No, I just had a question. I'm sorry. I had a question. I didn't know.
Yeah, still be
I thought maybe it was.
had to find these last year. So
Oopsie doopsie.
Oh, no, not, man.
But yeah, so we'll do our best to
That means
avoid
Bud,
that,
We're
right?
beyond good.
And I will say that while some of it was more of a formatting edit, after I did that process with ChatGPT, that's when both Commissioners Bedell and Weinstein stopped having nearly as many edits as far as like content and grammar and spelling and all of that for these descriptions. So it really worked. It honestly really worked, which was fantastic for all of us.
That's genius, Glenn.
yeah, that is.
Thanks.
That's the way to use artificial intelligence.
I was really, I must have come across it like on TikTok or something like that. I was like, oh my God, let me do that. I'm just so with the times. All right, so moving on. So really the rest of this report is just more descriptions. I'm scrolling down. We get into the community artist program. Again, that's sort of a mix between COP with organization summaries, and then we get into the artists where really it's just a list of the artists and how much they were allocated. So we might maybe find another way to do that. Oh, another thing that we might be able to do for CAP is break it down by, not concentration. Like the thing that you do is called thank you, discipline. There you go. We could break it down by discipline, which I think is really great because that's how Rhonda sort of structures her program when people are making those requests? What kind of disciplines are we representing through the program? I think that might be a unique opportunity for CAP in general because she asks for that. It's sort of self-selected by the artist or the organization.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Great. Fabulous.
I think that's where we can also say, where did they move on?
Absolutely. So that'll be another one. So Rhonda tracked that already. If we go to, I think it's the last page. This was the one that we were actually able to do since she does it.
Page
Yeah.
53.
Yes. Because hers is different than, let's say, a project, she is able to say how much money is spent per event. So she's able to say where those happen by district and how much money was spent by district. So this summary right here, I think, is basically the direction that we are talking in, right? And just finding those different ways. This was really, really helpful, but it's the nature of her program that she was able to pull this for this particular report.
Yes.
And then if we go up a little bit, we'll also see the percent funding to Alana artists and organizations. So we'll keep moving in this direction as well. Yeah.
And the last page is kind of the one that Commissioner Haloma was asking about.
Yes. So last year we just had a heck of a time working with GIS and trying to figure out how to map out all of that data without having to do it manually because we just did not have the manpower to do it.
So is the Arts District 2? What district?
District 14.
District 14 would be
Yes.
the Arts District. What is District 2?
Oh,
District-
it's the one that goes
Yes.
everywhere.
That's Moreno, Councilmember Moreno.
Oh, okay.
And his is basically west to east. When they redid this most recent realignment,
Yes.
I don't know how. Yeah, it's crazy. But his goes like kind of westish Dallas and like it hits like Oaklawn, a little bit of, and then it like squeezes and then it comes back out on the East Dallas side.
Is there,
Would you like a council district map in this annual report? Okay?
What we can do as a part is the visualization in GIS is show like where things are happening with the outline of districts.
and this
which is
may
really
be
nice.
one of the fears of putting this information in here. When I looked at this, I'm like, man, District 2 is getting a lion's share of money. And I'm just wondering like, why?
I wonder why.
I mean, is it
'Cause
bigger
Cooper's a
area?
huge area.
It does.
That's
It does.
basically it.
Yes, and it's possible that we're talking about organizations or community leaders or that happen to also be in there that are making a lot of requests.
Okay.
There's a
A lot of reasons.
there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons.
And
Yeah.
if all of, and this is my point though, and it makes me wonder, do we even need that information? If there are a lot of reasons that it could be, and there's no explanation as to why it is, then what's the use of putting it, why is it in there?
So maybe that's part of this, right? We have, if there is anything of note that we feel like we should have a description on, why did, District 2 get 148 services? We can certainly look at that. I think what this shows too is, this comes up with Commissioner Trezilla a lot about getting things up in further North Dallas, right? So when we show the visual representation of how many services are happening across the city, and then also we show maybe what Rhonda and her community arts team is doing to fill those gaps, right? It's able to either tell the story that we're filling those gaps, or, it informs the commission on, how might we all continue to partner together to figure out how to push more services into those areas. But until we have that data to tell, it's all just,
See, if she's District 12, right?
Correct.
Mentioned Trezilla.
Yeah.
So I just looked at District 12 and it's like the least amount on here.
right.
No.
And so
I think
So,
Yeah.
Said she's a cultural.
that's,
District 5.
and so that when I talk about sort of that partnership is, a lot of these, CAP is I say a passive program, and bear with me while I describe. For the most part, right, it's people making requests of Rhonda. It's very active to
So-
actually execute all of
Right.
that.
so could an explanation be that the artists in her district need less financial support?
No, I think that I think
The
the argument
demand-
could be made that
The
there,
demand is high.
that
The demand is.
The
well,
demand, the requests for cap artists
are lower there.
are lower in District 12 or 11 than they are in District 2. And that could also be a result of what organizations are present in District 2 that are taking advantage of the CAP program.
There are also
Right,
other
so-
goals.
The solution then becomes awareness
Mhm.
of the CAP program in District 11 and 12. So that would be a potential recommendation or solution, which is we need to do more marketing around this availability and resource in those districts.
I love it.
So
Man, I love it.
And I think Glenn, I think you had a very good point. I mean, it is data, it's information, and information helps us be better at what we're doing. So I don't think we have to be ashamed or apologize. It's information that we now know.
yeah,
Right, it's learning.
and to your point, Commissioner Valentine, as y'all rather as a committee, as we sort of share these graphics and this data, it might help inform your goals for next year. Exactly to that point. Hey, we see that there is less money and fewer events taking place in these districts. It will be the commission's goal to, work with staff, to help market or share with the council members up there to help, drive up those numbers and get your share of those dollars. I think that helps inform those as well. Okay, great.
Pleasantly surprised that District 13 has almost $40,000. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Might also point out that District 2 is not, for the most part, a wealthy district. So you find people looking for something that they can get for free. So they're asking for artists to come to entertain their children or teach their children in rec centers and things like that. They don't have any cultural centers as such, except for Salmon's Center for the Arts. So their kids go to the rec center. What can we get for the kids? And we go to the CAP page and we have all these artists, so they start asking for them.
Right. Yes.
And that sort of extends into Rhonda's community arts side of things when she's curating those events, doing her Reimagine Vacancy or Beautiful Communities. A lot of times she's approached by either council members or council liaisons or other community members like, oh, hey, there's this, vacant lot or this, wall that I'd love to see beautified and all that kind of stuff. That up in our other districts where we may not be doing as much, it's because, we only know so much about the city. It's our residents and our representatives that we rely on a lot to kind of bring that to our attention. Okay, great. So we've sort of ran through this. I have, I think, some next steps for myself, which is to kind of pull together some examples of how we can visualize some data and get some things like that in front of you. We'll start pulling, since we're done with our funding, basically, we'll start maybe putting together a little bit of that appendix so we can, part and parcel, piece and parcel, whatever. God, that's been on my mind a lot. And I've said it like 4 times in the past week. Anyways, we'll start. I don't know. Anyway, so we'll look at that. We'll start collecting information from, I totally skipped through this. Our cultural centers and our performance venues will pull some information, similar types of information from them on the usage of their facilities and things like that. So the next thing to talk about then is, what was next on the agenda? It's both of our goals, but I can't remember which one we said we would talk about first.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the goals.
Planning for goals. Oh, so for the body of the report, planning for next year's goals. So we talked about maybe using some data to make some our own recommendations. I believe last year we asked the chairs of each committee to work with their committees specifically to come up with their goals. I thought that worked out really well.
I agree.
Okay, great. So we'll put some messaging together with Emmanuel to reach out to have those committee chairs start working on when they want to put that into their meetings. And then the full commission and their goals, I think, did y'all come up with those and then we took them to the body?
And just have them approve it.
Approve or make any edits and adds?
Ask for any input, which
Yes,
we did.
which we did not get.
Any.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then just announce it. I think that's the best way.
Okay, so why don't we can, as we work through the next couple of meetings, we'll do the same thing, if that's the case. Awesome. Now, reviewing the progress of, sorry, that should actually say FY24. So our current year goals, how would y'all like to handle that?
I guess we need to look at the goals and then see who's
Yeah.
spearheading.
It's on page 12.
Yeah.
So.
So we have those, the two committees, allocations and CP and E. We can hand those over to them and ask them how they have met or reached any of those particular goals. And then for the commission, we can do the same thing where y'all sort of put together what you think is there.
So we accomplished the first proposal, bond proposal. But I don't know that we've gotten Space Finder off the ground.
Okay. How'd you go from
So
one to Space Finder?
Space Finder's number 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we
Yeah.
skipped, okay.
And Tino's working on the 5th goal.
And I believe Lynn gave a briefing on public art to help orient the commission. So I know that happened. We'll be, yeah.
Is there enough time, Jim? I don't want to overload you, but in your report for the next commission meeting, could you give the update?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes? Just
Okay, great.
give the update, and that's how we handle it, Jim.
Fabulous.
gives the
I think that's
update.
great. Absolutely wonderful. So we do, would you like that in August or do you want that in September?
Is there, when is our meeting? What's the date?
It's next Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah,
is that-
and I don't think that's time.
Oh,
for
okay.
in my opinion.
Okay,
so
so
we'll do
September. Great. All right. Well, that's it. That's it for briefings.
So we can ask the committees to talk about their goal.
Mm-hmm.
So allocations committee. And we can talk about the commission's goals.
Yeah. Great.
And that'll be their homework. Awesome.
All right. That's it for me. I know I just talked a whole lot.
No.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah.
And then upcoming meetings and events, standard stuff coming up. We're back in it this way.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. Any questions about any upcoming meetings? Okay, great. Oh, sorry. Now it's all you.
Yeah.
Report September 18th. Annual reports.
Any other business?
Move that we adjourn.
Yeah, and all business before the annual report committee being duly considered, I call this meeting to a close at 5:39.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Great job as always. You guys do all the heavy lifting. We just show up.
Yeah.
That's not heavy lifting. You know, I thought about it for today and we walked through it together. So, but thank you.
I agree.